All right, so Talkative did a interview with Jonathan yesterday, and we watched it last night on stream. And I just wanted to give you a little feedback about it because I had seen, some kind of vastly different opinions on the interview, and it was a glaze fest and this and that. And I don't think that's entirely fair to old Double T. Come on, you piece of junk. How about y'all? You got Hawg. Thanks for stopping by. I think I believe in giving credit where credit's due. I think Talkative did a very good job last night. Now I know a lot of people talking about it was a glaze fest, or um, there were some softball questions and all that. Um, Talkative loves the game, okay, and that's fine. He's totally allowed to just love the game. That's perfectly fine. Some of the standout complaints that were around the Still Sane podcast in the past were that he couldn't ask difficult questions, or it was all softball questions. Well, I think he improved on that significantly with this interview. Now, granted, there were still softball questions and some questions that didn't need to be asked, but I have a list. I went through and made a list of all the questions that he asked that I liked and that answer questions that I had. So I'm going to try to quickly just go through them, but I believe me and him kind of differ on maybe in every aspect of what we wish the game was. He wants it kind of slow and almost Dark Souls like, it feels like, and I would like it to be a kind of a compromise from PoE 1 to PoE 2 from where they're at now. That being said, we should still be able to give the guy credit when he does a good interview. After I go through the questions that I liked here, I'll give some feedback about what would make this even better and help some of the community. Like, I don't want to say respect the podcast, because to me it's a good podcast. It's very well done. It's very articulate. It's very well put together. But just to improve its I guess credibility a little bit with everybody, because I do want to see, like, this is I think it's a good podcast. I want to see this grow even further. But anyway, so some questions that I really like that he did. Is streaming your own gameplay still something you want to do in the future? This was kind of a disappointing question for me. Not that he asked it, because of the answer that Jonathan gave. Apparently, one of the big streamers told him not to do this because people would nitpick his gameplay, and I think that's a bad choice. I mean, naturally, people are going to nitpick stuff, but the way that Jonathan talked about it, like, hey, I want to sit down with the community. I want to just have a fun gameplay session in the campaign. Like, I think that'd be cool, and I think that we really need that as a community for the game director to play the game. I really think that would help out. It doesn't have to be nitpick his stuff to death. It can be just a casual type, hang out with a community and play. Like, and then, because for me personally, I would really like to see how he plays. And it wouldn't be like, let's make a video and analyze everything he's doing. Like, I just want to watch him play. Like, I want to see if he's doing something like completely different, or if this is how, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think it'd be cool. And I think that we should collectively as a community be able to let him do that without shitting on him. I think that's just fair. But like, I think that telling him not to do that was a mistake. You're going to get criticized either way. So the people that would enjoy that, like, that would be fun content. And anyway, so that was a cool question. Some of these you don't hear a lot, but a lot of them actually apply to a more casual player. That is his audience, and that's me as well. I'm a more casual player. So some of these really stood out. Does in-game death punishment in PoE 2 need to be as punishing as it is now, or is there any room to relax it? I thought that was a fantastic question. It's still something that needs to be addressed. Obviously, people are still concerned about that. That wasn't a softball question. Now, there could be better follow-up on some of it, sure, but I thought that was a good question. Is there next question was is there any chance of a 0.4.1 patch where you make in-game alterations similar to what you did in 0.3.1? Now, some people consider this softball, but I thought it was a good question. Like, hey, you did it last league. Are you going to do something this league? Um, he said no. And, you could tell some of these questions, at least to me, like reading body language, Jonathan really didn't like being asked some of these questions. But which made me like the interview even more. I was like, damn, Try's making him a little uncomfortable too. Like, not too bad. I don't want Try to watch this and be like, oh man, did I make him feel that way? Like, no, overall, this is a very good interview. This is how an interview should be. Shouldn't be too like Care Bears. It shouldn't be a fluff piece. But you also don't want to get too hostile with him and, make him shut down. I thought it was very good. Have you personally been playing much of the PoE2 in game? So again, a lot of people think this is a softball question, but to me, it helps me understand kind of the internals of who's doing what, whose ideas are what, like that kind of thing. I know it's useless to a lot of people, but my brain, I like to know that kind of stuff. So I like that question. And it turns out that he doesn't play the end game. He plays the campaign, which also prompted me to say, maybe we're interviewing the wrong guy. Maybe we should be interviewing Mark all the time and asking some of these questions instead of Jonathan. I thought that was a good question. Could you break down your goals behind reducing monster density by 40% in in-game maps? That was a community asked question, and that was a polite way of saying, like, what the hell are you thinking about this 40%? Explain yourself. And that's what happened. They had a conversation about it. And we have to play it to see how it feels. Like, there's no way to press him about that or anything else because we haven't played it yet. So I thought that was a good question. Touch on a couple others. Does the reduction in monsters per pack also reduce the number of rare monsters? We needed to know that. Do you think the game risks turning into a walking simulator with lower monster density? So he followed up on the density questions. I appreciated that. He let Jonathan know in a very polite way that that's a concern. Why does the warrior have so many downsides on its tree and gear compared to monk or ranger? Y'all, this was a huge W question for him, right? Like, this was attaboy right here. This is a serious, Jonathan didn't like this question at all, by the way. But it is, and DM's asked this question before. A bunch of people have asked this question since the game came out, is why is it like this? This question needs to be asked every interview until it's changed, right? Like, there's a lot of super negatives on the warrior side where there's not so much on the, like, what is it, northeast side of the tree. So, or the east side of the tree. Why did you design spell totems around charge generation and upkeep instead of free casting? I don't like charge generation. I didn't use it in PoE1, so that I really liked that question. Like, dude, why are you doing this? The game was kind of pitched as a streamlined, a little bit simplified, less complex PoE1 style game, just a little bit slower. We get it, right? But when you start adding charge generation and all this stuff, generator spenders to do this and that, like, it kind of makes your head spin a little bit. So I appreciate this question. What happened to more shape-shifting focused druid ascendancy? Fantastic question. It's something that I've been a little frustrated with. I wish that shape-shifting was a druid type deal. The Lich demon gal can shapeshift. She's the only one that can. Not to dive too deep into that, but how will increased monster health affect ailment threshold? Again, we're trying to figure out how this in-game, health addition is going to be. And that was a good question to try to figure that out. Now, obviously, it was like a 2.5 hours, a 2-hour interview. There were a bunch of really good questions. One that's not in here is, I forget exactly what the question was. It was something about items. And that's when it was revealed. And this is like probably my number one issue that I've had, the most glaring. Every time I play the game, I bitch about it. It's the lack of item upgrades. that drop or whatever. And so JR specifically addressed that they've made a fix there, but he said you could go 25, 28 levels without getting an item upgrade. And literally every time that I bring this up as something that's to me a foundational problem that needs to be adjusted, everyone would just tell me to press Z or get good or you hadn't found the right item. Like it was all just bullshit excuses. And then finally JR was like, we recognize that was a problem and fixed it. So because of that question alone that no one else had asked, I'm actually kind of excited to try the game, and maybe the game will feel a little more fluid through the campaign when you're getting more upgrades, or more frequent upgrades than we were getting, and that will help prolong your kind of carrot on the stick and motivate you a little bit more to continue building and get into the end game. It's not that the end game is too hard or the game's too hard. It's that, when you don't have a weapon upgrade for 25 fucking levels, you reach a point where you're like, why am I playing this? So I'm excited to try it now that fix has happened. And because he asked that question, we found out about that. Now, some feedback about what could make this better. Like when the community's ready for a patch, we don't care about, and I know it's fun and this is not just a double T thing. This is for any interviewer. It's fun to sit there and talk about game design. And it's fun to sit there and talk about MTX and how did you feel when doing this? And, what'd you have for supper this morning? Like, that's fun, right? But the community, especially when you only have a very limited time, 2 hours to do the interviews, I believe what he said he had. If you fill up a lot of that time with that kind of stuff, and if I was doing the interview, I'd be real guilty of it too, because I'm a Southerner. I like talking, and I'd be telling stories and all kind of stuff. And that's why I don't do interviews, because y'all would hate me trying to do it would be a 12-hour long fucking interview. So that with that being said, being able to cut out a little bit of the fluff pieces, a little bit of like one example was it exciting to return to Adziri for PoE 2? That probably ate up a good 5-6 minute portion that could have been devoted to something else. I think that's what the community is referring to. Stuff like, how did you feel about being referenced via Twitch drop MTX? Do you see interludes becoming an alternative progression path post campaign? Like, not that these are really bad questions, but maybe not so much fit in an interview pre-league, maybe after league, or maybe like I'd love to be real. I think it would be cool for try to do a, non-league interview with them. Maybe just, cause they talk about, game development concepts, and Try likes hearing about that. I think it'd be cool to do a series about that. That's not before the league launch, which makes Try get bad mouthed by some folks. See, chaos attacks or quarterstaff play in the future. That's one that, but this list is real small. There's maybe 5 or 6 on here. And I get that's sometimes you just have to have some of those questions in there, but like, what was the hardest part or most frustrating part about developing the druid? Like that could actually be that could go into a whole different tangent, and that's what's triggering some of these people saying this is a fluff piece or this is just more whatever, la 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 la. I did notice that I want to try to help him clarify or see from the other side maybe a little bit. It says in the very beginning of the video, a lot of people are pissed off that I'm happy. And I really don't think it's that. I think it's more like people want to feel like you can call out stuff that needs calling out, that it's not all perfect all the time. And I think this interview here was a good step in the right direction for him, because he did say stuff he didn't like. He did say, I think he was referring to something about pack density or how he felt in point 3, and he told Jonathan, he's like, I just didn't G-haul that, just to overgeneralize. You can go find the clip yourself, but I was proud of him. I even stopped the stream and said, "But we got a milestone here." He's told JR he didn't like something. That's good. Um, but I think his podcast can be very good. I think that's the biggest point of feedback that I would give him is just be able to push back a little bit. And what I mean by that is, for example, um, and let me say this: when you push back, it doesn't have to be, an argument, or it doesn't have to be anything, but it's an attempt to let them, maybe they don't, as dev to player, they don't see our side, we don't see their side. So to me, the job of the interviewer here is to try to bridge that gap and try to explain from both sides, or understand both sides, or portray it so the dev can understand what the community is saying. So the perfect example was when he was talking about the druid ascendancies and stuff. So they said that they did not believe in their game. They did not believe in having things tied to a specific class, or like locking things behind an ascendancy. What I would have liked to have seen happen is, instead of just going, "Oh, okay, cool," the follow-up question to that been, "Okay, you don't want shapeshifting on an ascendancy that's locked behind a class, but we have the demon form, which it's got a shapeshifting tag that's locked behind an ascendancy." That would have been a really good follow-up question, because he may not even see that or understand that or whatever. But to me, that's how we're really gonna progress, like the shape of the game, is to make sure that everybody understands everybody, not just the devs make us understand where they're at. They understand why we want some things. Another example was the sort. He did that's a great question to ask, is the sort. But there's a disconnect there, not Try's fault, but the devs don't understand. I don't know if they understand why we want the sort. To me, so I'm just speaking for me now. For me, it would have been, I don't care about sort in our stash. I care about sort on our inventory in game. So Jonathan said, like, "Oh, I really don't want to do that, because then it would make items like useless and nobody would care about items anymore." And I was saying no. And so what I would have liked to see, the pushback follow-up question, maybe that's a better way, pushback follow-up question to that would have been, or clarity. Let me clarify why we want that. When we're in a map and we're picking up items, so that already dispels your fear of us not caring about items. We're picking up items off the ground that we need, and your inventory gets full. So you open your inventory, you're in a map, and everyone that's played PoE or PoE 2 knows, or Diablo 1, 2, 3, 4, all the, last all this. Any inventory game, it's going to be jumbled a little bit, and in PoE you've got to sit there and kind of move things over, right? Whereas like in Last Epoch, where you got the auto sort, you click the auto sort, it moves everything in your player inventory in the map, and then you're able to pick up more stuff. To me, that's all I care about, is how I know some of y'all care about having a actual sort in your stash. I don't personally, so we're just talking about me, but that's what I would like to see from this podcast, is him be able to clarify a little bit more about things like that for those two examples. Not necessarily have to push back and, get in an argument or anything like that, but just be able to, when we get kind of a bullshit answer, not accept it 100%, maybe give a little bit of pushback. And it doesn't even have to have a follow-up conversation, but maybe a little bit of pushback on to the next question. But it needs to be, I think that would dispel a lot of the crispy clean glazer and all this shit they say. To me, like, if the guy wants to love the game and the guy wants to think the game's awesome, like, that's totally fine for him to do that. But I think that it would really help solidify his podcast and continue to make it better. I think it's a really great podcast. Actually, I think he did a really fantastic job. Um, Usually, some of the previous podcasts, I'd be sitting here like, why can't he ask a tough question? Why can't he, do this? but he did that this time. I think he did a great job. So I'd like to see the next time, that if the community is, mad about something, or not mad, but if they're vocal about something, I would like to see a little bit more pushback on some of those areas, instead of just kind of widely accepting the answer. So I understand why it's done that way, but that would just help the podcast out, and help kind of the respect from the community a little bit. But overall, I think it was a great. I'm glad I watched it. Some folks said it wasn't necessary to watch. I'm glad I watched it because I learned some things about the game, that they had fixed that were not referenced anywhere else. So anyway, if y'all have not watched it, go ahead and go watch it. It to me, it is worth the watch. The transcript is up, so you can kind of fast forward through stuff if you want to do that. Again, yes, there were some softball questions about MTX and stuff like that, but there were some really good questions. A lot of them were from the community. They weren't just they weren't just made up by him too. It seemed like people actually asked those. So anyway, appreciate y'all. We will be playing obviously on the 12th. Come join me on stream. Hit like and subscribe. See you next time.